She laughed at the table, sharp and casual, loud enough for strangers to turn. My mother followed, smiling as if it were a joke she had practiced. You will never have a house like your sister's. My sister stretched the moment, leaned back, and asked if jealousy tasted bitter. Plates paused. No one stepped in. I kept my hand still. I didn't argue or explain. Silence felt safer than truth. Hours later, I invited my sister to dinner. When she arrived, she froze, then screamed into her phone, "Mum, you have to see this right now." And everyone watched quietly. I grew up believing that fairness was something adults protected. That if you stayed quiet, worked hard, and didn't cause trouble, someone older would notice and step in when things tipped too far. That belief lasted longer than it should have. The first time I understood how wrong it was, I was 14. My sister wanted my room because it had better light. My mother said it made sense. I was told to be flexible. That word followed me for years. Flexible meant giving up space, time, money, and sometimes dignity, without complaint. My sister learned early that wanting something out loud usually worked. I learned that wanting quietly meant nothing at all. My mother was the authority in our family. She decided what was reasonable, what was dramatic, and what should be ignored. When my sister crossed lines, it was brushed off as personality. When I reacted, even slightly, it became a problem. I was labeled sensitive, difficult, jealous. That word came easily to them, as if it explained everything. When my sister bought her first house, my mother made it a family event. Photos were sent in the group chat. Comments about how proud she was filled the screen. I sent a congratulations message and turned my phone face down. I was renting a small place then, saving carefully, saying no to things I wanted. My mother knew that. She also knew my sister's down payment came from a loan she quietly helped arrange. That part was never mentioned. At dinners, comparisons slipped in like background noise. My sister's kitchen. My sister's garden. My sister's plans. If I shared something, it was redirected. If I stayed silent, it was taken as proof that I had nothing to say. I learned how to nod at the right moments and excuse myself early. The day at the restaurant wasn't new. It was just public. That was the difference. The waiter stood there with the bill while my mother laughed and said the thing she had said before, just not in front of strangers. My sister saw the opening and stepped into it. No one at the table told them to stop. That hurt more than the words. Afterward, my mother texted me a heart emoji, like that closed the moment. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just a symbol that meant move on. I didn't reply. Inviting my sister to dinner later that night surprised even me. It wasn't a plan. It felt like tying a loose thread, just to see where it led. I cooked something simple. Cleaned the apartment until it smelled like lemon. I set the table for two and waited. When she arrived, she didn't say hello right away. She stood in the doorway, scanning the room, her eyes catching on details I usually forgot were there. The bookshelf. The framed print. The quiet. Her face changed before she could hide it. Then she laughed, too loud, and pulled out her phone. She walked to the window, turned her back to me, and called our mother. Her voice rose quickly, sharp and breathless. "Mom, you have to see this right now. You won't believe it." I stayed where I was. I didn't ask what she meant. I didn't follow her. For the first time, I noticed how calm I felt. Not relieved. Not happy. Just steady. Like something had finally stopped shifting under my feet. While she stood at the window, talking fast and low, I started noticing things I had trained myself not to see. The way she never asked how I was doing, only how things compared. The way she moved through my space like she was inspecting it, not visiting. This wasn't curiosity. It was inventory. I remembered other moments like this. Birthdays where my gifts were opened last, almost as an afterthought. Holidays where plans were changed without asking me, then explained later as already decided. When my sister needed help, it was urgent. When I did, it was inconvenient. The pattern wasn't loud. It was consistent. My mother always framed it as practicality. Your sister needs it more. Your sister is better with money. Your sister knows what she wants. I was told I would understand when I was older. I was older now, and I understood perfectly. Understanding didn't make it easier. It just made it harder to ignore. At work, I had learned to speak carefully. To document everything. To assume nothing would be remembered unless I wrote it down. At home, I had done the opposite. I assumed effort would be noticed. That restraint would count for something. It never did. Silence wasn't seen as strength. It was seen as availability. My sister ended her call and turned back to me, smiling in a way that felt rehearsed. She asked how long I'd lived there. I answered. She asked how much it cost. I shrugged. She nodded, like she was confirming something she already believed. Then she made a joke about how temporary places always feel cozy at first. I let it pass. Dinner was quiet. She ate, scrolling through her phone, occasionally lifting it to take photos. She said our mother wanted to visit soon. She said it casually, like a favor. I said nothing. I watched her hands instead. Perfect nails. Confident movements. Someone who had never worried about being denied. After she left, the apartment felt larger. Not empty. Clear. I washed the dishes slowly. I replayed the call in my head. The urgency in her voice. The excitement. I realized she hadn't sounded angry. She sounded thrilled. Whatever she had seen mattered. Whatever it was, she wanted witnesses. The next morning, my mother called. She didn't ask how I was. She asked what I was hiding. That word landed hard. Hiding. As if privacy itself was suspicious. She said my sister was confused. She said I should have been upfront. I asked about what? She paused, then changed the subject. That pause told me everything. They didn't need facts. They needed a story that kept things the way they were. One where I was the problem for stepping out of line. One where my sister stayed central and unquestioned. For the first time, I didn't try to fix it. I didn't explain. I didn't defend myself. I let the call end without resolution. It felt unfamiliar. Uncomfortable. And strangely right. The boundary was crossed the following week, quietly, the way it always happened. My mother called while I was at work and said she had shared my address. She said it lightly, like a favor. Your sister was worried, she explained. Worried enough to ask questions she had no right to ask. That evening, a real estate agent knocked on my door. He apologized for the confusion and said he was there to assess the property. I told him it was a rental. He checked his notes again, embarrassed, and said he had been told otherwise. Someone had requested information in my name. Someone had spoken with certainty. I closed the door and sat on the floor. It wasn't anger I felt. It was a thin, clean line being drawn. They had moved from comments to actions. From opinions to interference. From watching my life to stepping into it. Messages followed. My sister asked why I was being secretive. My mother asked why I was making things awkward. Neither asked for permission. Neither apologized. The assumption was that access was automatic, and refusal was betrayal. I remembered other moments I had smoothed over. When my savings were discussed like family property. When my plans were shared before I could finish explaining them. When my boundaries were treated as mood swings. I had taught them that this was acceptable by surviving it quietly. That night, I wrote everything down. Dates. Calls. Names. Not because I planned to confront them, but because I needed to see it clearly. On paper, the pattern looked undeniable. It was no longer personal. It was procedural. The next day, I changed my passwords. I updated my mailing address. I spoke to my landlord and explained, calmly, that family members might try to interfere. He listened without judgment and thanked me for the warning. No one noticed the shift right away. That was the point. I stopped answering questions that weren't questions. I stopped explaining choices that didn't require approval. Inside, something settled. I wasn't asking for a place anymore. I was choosing one. I felt the old pull to justify myself fade, replaced by a quiet resolve. Whatever they said next would travel without me. I had learned the cost of access. I chose distance, not as punishment, but as protection, and a future that no longer needed their permission to exist in peace. I didn't announce the distance. I just lived it. When messages came, I replied late, briefly, or not at all. When plans were suggested, I said I was busy and meant it. Silence did the work I used to exhaust myself doing. Weeks later, the real estate agent called again, apologetic, asking to confirm ownership. This time the request had my sister's email attached. I forwarded the message to my landlord and let him handle it. He did. A cease notice followed. It was formal. It was quiet. My mother rang, voice tight, asking why strangers were sending letters. I said I wasn't sure. I let the line sit there. She filled it with explanations that contradicted each other. I listened without correcting her. At a family gathering I didn't attend, my sister told a story about me hiding things. Someone asked why an agent had been turned away. Someone else mentioned paperwork. The room cooled. Details don't like lies. The group chat went silent for days. Then my mother posted a photo from years ago, as if nostalgia could reset boundaries. No one reacted. My sister deleted it. Later, a cousin messaged me privately to ask if everything was okay. I said yes. That was true. I was sleeping better. My finances were intact. My address stayed mine. I never confronted them. I never demanded an apology. The consequences arrived on their own. Access narrowed. Trust evaporated. The version of me they relied on stopped showing up. Months passed. I signed a lease extension without telling anyone. I framed a new print. I hosted friends who didn't compare. When my mother finally asked to visit, I said no dates worked. I wished her well. The last message I received from my sister was short. She said she hadn't meant any harm. I didn't reply. Meaning is irrelevant when behavior repeats. I kept moving forward. Quietly. Intact. The house I was building wasn't bricks yet, but it was mine. And for the first time, that was enough. Nothing dramatic happened after that. No scenes. No victories to post. Just steady days, closed doors, and fewer invitations. People noticed the absence and asked questions I didn't answer. Records stayed clean. Accounts stayed separate. My name stayed where it belonged. Their noise faded as my life grew fuller. I learned distance can be loving, final, and necessary, without cruelty or explanation ever.